guys, what is up? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to a new video. It is an absolutely beautiful night here. Sun is just going down. It's about 68, 70 degrees. So I got the garage door open. There's no bugs. I don't need to have the fan on or anything like that. It is just beautiful. And having nights like this is just, it makes me happy. I love being in the garage during this time of the year. So we have been working diligently on the F80 M3, installing all the modifications that I have originally purchased for it. I still have quite a few things to do to the car. Don't worry, plenty more videos to come in terms of modifications and installing and all that. But what I kind of been doing is focusing on a section at a time. So originally I was focusing on doing the little stuff on the exterior, getting all the new carbon on, doing some interior stuff, and now I have been primarily focusing on the engine bay. The engine bay for me is someplace that I really like to spend a lot of time on, a lot of effort making it really beautiful. I always find that a lot of people don't pay much attention to the engine bay. They just kind of leave it as is, maybe do a little thing here and there. But I really like to spend a lot of time on the engine bay, making it look pretty, making it look even better than it already is. And if you guys know me with my STI, I spent a lot of time in the engine bay, making it look as good as it did. But we have done quite a few things in here so far. We've done a lot of the, well, all of the inventory carbon fiber. We did the engine cover, intake. We just did the charge pipes. We did the golden wrench, the black line performance cap set. And obviously still more to go. But one of the things I wanted to get knocked out in this video is the hardware. The hardware on the F80 M3 is pretty nice. I mean, you know, nothing to write home about, but it's not the ugliest thing in the world. However, if you guys know me, I am a huge fan of titanium. With the STI, you guys know I spent a lot of time working with a company, getting the entire engine bay sorted with titanium bolts. I pretty much touched every single bolt in the engine bay. I also did a few titanium pieces around the car and the inside, not on the exterior, but just random little things here and there to kind of give it that special touch. And that is what we're going to be doing in the engine bay of the S55. So there is a company called Downstar. Downstar actually has an entire engine bay kit. So with the previous company that I've used in the past, I had to piece everything together on my own, measure all the bolts out, work with the owner of the company, which was great. I was able to kind of help him develop some great kits for the Subaru world. But with Downstar, they already had a kit already made, so I decided to go with them and kind of just install it. One of the really cool things about Downstar is not only that they have multiple kits for different vehicles, different models, is that they actually have different materials to choose from. So you can use billet, you can get a mixture of billet and titanium, or you can get full titanium. If you guys know me, you guys know I went with the full burnt titanium engine bay kit. So this is everything that you're going to need to replace all of the stock hardware in the engine bay to make it look nice and pretty. You can do many different colors of the bolts. You can do different colors of the actual washers, the little nice fittings and everything. So a lot of choices to choose from. You can kind of design it around your theme, but I'm just such a big fan of titanium, so I decided to go with the full burnt version. Also, this is the full titanium kit. Like I said, you can get billet, you can get the hybrid, which is titanium and billet, or full titanium. So the little finishers as well as the bolts are actual real titanium. You know, this is no joke, this is the real stuff. Decided to go all out and do it properly and get exactly what I wanted. So the real cool thing about them is they have a full kind of instruction manual. So they tell you where each one goes, and they're kind of individually wrapped in their own little packaging so they don't get mixed up and you guys know exactly where to install them. But that is what we're going to do. We're going to be installing this tonight, making the beautiful engine bay that we have here look even better. All right, so opening up the little pamphlet that comes with your kit, you can see they literally show you every single bolt, where each one goes. They have a little kind of list right here to tell you how many pieces you get of each. So one of the really cool notes that I noticed on the side here that I wasn't aware of is that there's some places where there's some weather stripping. So if you look on the fender here, we got some weather stripping here. There's bolts underneath there, and we're replacing them, even though there's weather stripping there and they're going to be covered. So really cool that they kind of went to this depth to make sure that you literally are replacing every single little bolt that you can possibly see or even not see in this case. And I thought that was a really cool touch. So let's go ahead. Let's, I guess, start up front and kind of work our way back. And in order to do that, I believe you start at the bottom, kind of work your way up, but we'll figure it out. Like I said, everything is kind of listed out and how many pieces you get of each, so you can figure it out as you go. And it's really nice that they labeled everything, so it's a pretty simple install. So let's start up with the front. On the strut bar, those are kind of one of the pieces that I want to do right away because they're so massive and they make a big difference right away. And those are located on the bottom. They're actually number 10. It says Strut Bar, so you get the 2 little washers and 2 big bolts. Now to remove these are 13 millimeter. You could also use, I think it's a T35, not a T30, it's a little bit bigger. But in order to do this properly, I'm just using a 13 millimeter. Gonna loosen those up. And then I think these are, we'll see, these are an Allen key. So to install them, you actually need a number 5 and a number 6 hex. So that's all the tools you need to install all of these bolts. But let's go ahead and remove these first, get the new Downstar hardware in, and show you how it looks. All right, so we got the first 2 pieces installed. Absolutely love it. I love the coloring on this. It looks absolutely beautiful, and it complements the carbon fiber. Very, very nice. And it's a nice flush finish, and I really like the finishers. It is recommended to use gloves when you're installing these just so you don't get fingerprints on them, but it's a little hard kind of going and fishing your fingers into. We had to go into here in a little bit using gloves, so I'm just gonna wipe everything down. I usually just end up using some glass cleaner, something really simple, nothing crazy acidic or anything like that, to clean everything up, and it usually cleans out the titanium hardware beautifully. So I'm gonna do that when I'm done, but obviously limit the amount of time that you're touching with the oils on your hands to the titanium, just because you don't want to get them all gross and everything. So let's go ahead and move on the front right here. This is the Radiator support brace. So if you look in here, there's some bolts, there's some larger ones and smaller ones. You actually get 10 pieces, so it is this one right here. So if you notice, there's a couple larger ones, a couple smaller ones. So obviously replace the large ones with the large ones, small ones with the small ones, and these are the finishers right here. So let's go ahead, let's kind of dip into here and get those installed and move on to the next. Alright, so we got all the front strut brace installed. These 2 middle ones are in there very, very tight. They're T40s, very hard to get to. What I recommend, you may have seen it in the video, I put a microfiber towel here just when I was using the wrench. I was making sure I wasn't hitting up against that. You can use painter's tape. I just ended up using a microfiber and it worked out great. So got those in there. Those were the hardest ones because they were super, super tight, but we got everything installed. So we did these, did all the front ones in there on top here, and we also got these for the strut brace. So now we're most likely going to move on to these latches. There's 8 of them, very simple. These are T30s, so let's go ahead and do those. All right, so we got the hood latch hardware in on both sides, this side and also the driver's side. Also a note, do one at a time. You can't do all at once because if you take them all out, the actual hood latch will drop and it will lose its position. So do one at a time and do it that way. But starting to look really, really nice. I'm really liking how this is turning out. Adds a little pop of color to an otherwise pretty kind of bland engine bay in terms of coloring. So very, very happy. But all right, so now in order to keep organized, I've been checking everything off that I have been doing. So we are on number 8, the bracket next to the left-hand strut. So if we come over here, there's a bracket right here. We're gonna replace that with this. All right, next up is the right-hand intake pipe bracket. So if we go over to the intake on the passenger side, you will see a 10 millimeter right there. So we're going to replace that. All right, next up we're going to do the Fender Hardware. Now it says 14, but I'm counting 5 on each side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm not really sure where the other 4 go, but I'm going to install the 10 first, and then maybe I'll come across the other 4. But I've looked at all the other little diagrams, little labels, and I'm not really sure where the other 4 go, but I guess we'll figure it out. Maybe they give you some extra, not really sure, but let's go ahead and knock these out. Now on the fenders, as I mentioned, you have to remove the weather stripping here to get to the bolts. There's only one showing, which is right here, and then the other 4 are back behind there. So let's go ahead and remove that and get those installed. So the fender bolts, as I mentioned, I was using 5 on each side, but I only ended up using 3. 1 there, 1 under here, and then 1 in back. They say to use the nut and bolt method because there's no thread on that section where the pins are. So they ask you to use a nut and 1 of the bolts in the pieces right here. However, the bolts are very big in terms of the height. So if you look at that height, and you look at the pin height, very low. If you use these on the plastic side, when you try to close the hood, it won't close properly because these are much higher, it hits the hood. So we are not going to use these on that section. I mean, that's not a big deal. I could always find another use for these. I'm pretty good at finding other places to use the titanium hardware. That's what I did with my STI. I found a million different places to use bolts that I ended up not using. In specific spots, I found other places for them. So I would have loved to use them there, but honestly, I'm not going to sacrifice the fitment of the hood just to get some really nice bolts in there. So I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to leave the pins in. I'm going to knock out the other side, same thing. We're going to only do 3, so 1, then 2, and then 3 in the back. And then just use the normal push pins for the little plastic piece. I think they may want you to remove this and leave it out because it's very hard to get your finger under there to get the nut underneath to screw the bolt in as well. So I'm not really sure what they expect there, but I'm definitely going to leave the pins in there. So let me get this side knocked out, then we'll move on to the next set of bolts. All right, got the driver's side done. So we got 1 there, and then 1 out back over there. Now I'm going to take the plastic piece, put it back in. It's a shame you have to cover those up. I mean, I guess you can leave these off if you really want to, but I'm all about that OEM-ness, so we're going to put it back. So the plastic piece is back. As I mentioned, we're going to be using the stock little plastic pins. Push them down. Same thing here. And same thing in the last one. So moving on, now we're going to move up to number 4, the plastic headlight brackets. So if we come over to the headlight area, you'll see these gray little plastic brackets right here. So it's 1 there and then 1 on the back side. We're replacing those with these right here. Let's get that knocked out. All right, got the driver's side knocked out for the headlight brackets. Now we're going to move on to these, the fender brackets. So there's 1, 2, and 3. Kind of hard to get to, but we'll manage and get them done. So that is number 3 on the list. Fender supports times 6. So you got them right here with the little washers. Let's do them. All right, fender bracket ones are installed. Now these 2 in the back are a little hard to get to. So what I came up with is a 1/4 inch wrench and a 3/16 bit. So all I did was put the bit onto the actual nut or the screw, and then I went ahead and tightened it down with this. You probably saw me doing it when I was installing it, so those are a little hard to get to, but if you do this method, it's pretty easy. All right, got the driver's side done over here. So now we're gonna move on to number 2, the coolant reservoir. So if we come over here, there's a 10mm. We're gonna replace that with one of these. I believe it does come with nuts, which I do believe that it is threaded over there, so I'm not sure. But I do have all these as well I can use if those don't work. But let's go replace that, and then we can move on to the last piece. Alright, so I didn't need the nut. That threaded in just fine. Not really sure why they included one, but hey, whatever. The next one is, I believe it's called the electrical junction next to the left-hand strut tower. So driver's side, and if we look here, I believe that's it. Down there in that little bracket is a 10 or 8 or 10mm. So we're going to remove that. And I do believe you need to use a nut for that one, since the bolt here goes into plastic and the titanium one is not going to fit in there. So I believe you take that little white piece out as well and use the nut to tie that down. That little white piece is not coming out. I don't want to damage anything. It's not worth it. However, as you guys know, as I mentioned, I'm a big titanium fan, and I did a lot of titanium hardware on my STI, and I have a lot left over. So the 8mm that we just took out is right here. This is what it looks like. This is the stock bolt, and lo and behold, I have the exact same bolt in titanium from a different company that I used to use. So I'm going to use this one instead because I don't want to take that plastic piece out. Again, I don't want to damage anything, and this works perfectly and it looks beautiful. So let's go ahead and put that in. I've been spending a little bit of time kind of going around the car, seeing if I could find any areas for the extra titanium hardware that I do have. I have a bunch of it. This is the Downstar. This is from a different company, and I was looking to see if I can fit anything anywhere, and I found a few places. I found the little washer that I was able to use on the Venturi intake over here. I ended up removing the plastic cover here, so to see if I can find anything. I found a bolt there. Also found one there. Same thing on the other side. I was able to find one for there and right there. It's also had a bolt to go right there, which that wasn't included in the kit. That was something different. All right, guys, so that is going to conclude the install of the Downstar engine bay kit, the titanium hardware kit. Absolutely love how everything turned out. It's one of those things that not many people do, but I love doing on all my cars, simply because it just makes everything look a little bit better. Gives it that little fine detail that people notice, saying like, wow, they spent a lot of time, you know, making sure this is perfect, and it's just something I really enjoy doing. Plus, titanium material holds up better over time, so you're actually doing the car a favor by putting some nicer hardware on there. So this is all the hardware that we have replaced on the car. I think it was over 40 pieces, and I mean, look at this stuff. It's good looking hardware for the most part from factory, but it's dirty, looks ugly, and it just doesn't look as good as that. So I highly recommend this if anybody's looking for a really nice hardware kit with everything included. I could not recommend Downstar hardware enough. Eventually, I'd like to do a titanium stud kit, not the burnt version, but just a titanium stud kit. Probably do some titanium lugs as well, but that will be down the line. But very, very happy with the quality, very happy with how everything turned out. I do have quite a bit of extra stuff over here that I'll probably end up finding a use for somewhere down the road. I will be sure to update you guys if I find any other cool places to put the hardware, but as for the engine bay, pretty happy with it. I still got a couple more things to do in here. I still have to do the Muscleman oil thermostat. I have to do the charge cooler. Most likely going to go with CSF, as I mentioned in other videos. A couple other things as well that I'll be doing in here. But for the current progress of the engine bay, I am very, very thrilled how everything turned out so far. And it's looking better and better with everything that I do. So if you guys have any questions at all about the Downstar kit or anything else on the M3, please let me know in the comments below. But in the meantime, keep it clean, keep it simple, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.